A wild weekend of NBL hoops in the books. This is NBL Now on your Tuesday morning. Joel Peterson, and it's great to have the sharpest mind in the game back in the house, Liam Santamaria. Liam, welcome back.
Thanks, Joel. Good to be back, and I'll tell you, there's a lot going on.
Absolutely, there is. It was a crazy weekend of basketball. What was your main takeaway from it?
I think that anybody can beat anybody at any time. I think the Cairns Taipans are proving that right now, that all the expectations early that they were going to be, struggle for wins, well, they've just gone bang, bang against, the grand finalists last season. Yeah, teams that you feel like, probably should take care of business in certain situations are letting games slip. And then, others like the Sydney Kings are getting things done. So that's probably my biggest takeaway, we've got a couple of teams right now that are still winless, but in this league, it's at your peril to take teams lightly. So that's probably my biggest takeaway. Week after week in the NBL, and this week was probably no different.
Now, we'll have some more snake chat shortly. What was your pick for game of the weekend? So you called Illawarra Adelaide. I called Tassie and Perth. We could probably make an argument either way. They were two vastly different games with really interesting endings. Did you come away from one of them thinking, yeah, that was it?
Oh, I think the Illawarra Adelaide game was the game of the round. I think it was probably the game of the season so far, to be honest. Yeah, it didn't go to overtime like yours did down on the Apple Isle, but it went right down to the wire, and it was, I feel like, a really high-quality game. I thought your game down there was very, very competitive, but I don't know, it was a bit of a grind at different stages. Heck, the Jack Jumpers scored 9 points in the opening quarter, whereas the Illawarra Adelaide game was high-scoring, high-tempo, and really, really high quality. When you have one of those games where in crunch time, teams are just trading huge blows, I think that can become super fun. And when Tyler Harvey comes down and hits the step-back three to go ahead, and then Kendrick Davis comes down and responds, they were going punch for punch down the stretch, and in the end, Adelaide kind of came in and walked out with the win.
I've got to say I'm with you. So obviously calling that Tassie-Perth game was fascinating for all kinds of reasons, but I was actually watching the Illawarra Adelaide game while I was at the footy on Saturday night, and I was glued to it. I couldn't look away. The ending of that game and the way it unfolded, and you were hanging on every shot because you knew Tyler Harvey had the capacity to do exactly what he did, and you knew Kendrick Davis wanted to make a statement. So that was, I think that's the early contender. That might stand the test of time. It might get knocked off, but it's a pretty good early contender for game of the season.
Oh, very good kind of foundation to set. There is absolutely no doubt that we're going to see some, a game or two that'll top that. But in the meantime, really high quality. And then you had other guys on the floor who were ready to kind of, okay, if you're going to put all your focus on Tyler Harvey, Trey Carroll's going to come up and make big plays. Down the other end, Dejan Vasiljevic is like, well, I also want the rock, and I'm ready to take and make big shots as well. So, that was a super fun game.
It was indeed. So the Taipans you mentioned, they were the big winners of the weekend. So they go 2-0 against the grand finalists from last year, one home, one away. They continue that dominant run of form against Melbourne United, which is one of the great statistical oddities of the NBL at the moment. They're 3-1 on the season, coming off a 27-point loss in which they looked a mile off it, only in really the last quarter in that first game against Illawarra. But you were thinking, oh, gee, there's something that's not quite right about this team. They bounced back. They bounced back in fine style. What are you liking about Cairns at the moment?
Well, firstly, with regards to the start of the season, it was pretty clear what was not quite right about that team at that time, and that was that Taron Armstrong wasn't in uniform. Without tooting the horn, Joel, if you go back into preseason, I was probably the one guy out there saying, I wouldn't sleep on these Taipans. I think that they have some potential to be a really good team because I like the way Adam Ford's gone about putting this team together. He learned some things last season with that team that kind of fell apart internally. And, he went into the offseason and said, I'm going to have my types of guys. And I'm going to have guys that I want to be in the trenches with. I'm going to have guys that are going to go about it the right way on the day-to-day and whose head's going to be in the right place regardless of whether we win games or we lose games. And that's what he's got. So I like the fact that this team is playing in the image of their head coach. They're tough. They're resilient. They are happy to be the underdogs, but they believe in themselves and the work that they've done. So, you got to love everything about the Taipans right now. And I tell you what, they are must-watch TV this week because they've got Perth coming into town, who are 1-3 and are desperate for a win. And then they play prime time on the main channel on Channel 10 in Sydney against the Sydney Kings. So, a huge weekend ahead for the Snaps.
And the way they're going, they could take both of those games. Taron Armstrong is a fascinating case just to watch his development. Do you think he's ready to lead a team that is successful in the NBL? His first two games have been majestic.
Yeah, he's ready. And that's why Adam Ford built this team around Taron Armstrong, because he similarly felt Taron was ready. Now, make no mistake, every team in the league builds a roster in the NBL every year to try to win the championship. There is no rebuilding kind of process that takes place in a 10-team league without a draft. And Adam Ford has that mentality of saying, you know what, I think Taron Armstrong can take us to the title. That's a big call. There's only a second-year pro. But I think it's a good call. It's proving to be on the money so far, very early going, of course. And they're going to go through some trials and some tribulations. But he's a special talent. And I like what they've got in him and what he's shown here in the early part of the season.
Yeah, you're not wrong. He's a very special talent. Hey, you're keeping a close eye on the New Zealand Breakers at the moment. They're over in the States. They played the Utah Jazz a couple of days ago and gave them all they could handle early. The Jazz pulled away late. We saw the Lowry Markkinen, Petteri Koppinen, the jersey swap, which was a nice little moment. Karim Lopez has looked good over there. What have you taken away from the early game of the Breakers and of course, the next star who's doing some nice things?
Man, I thought they played Utah pretty tough. They got Philly coming up later today, which is exciting. But, I was impressed with the way they competed against Utah. Yeah, they ended up losing by 29. We've been spoiled a little bit over the years in terms of some close games in these NBL, NBA clashes. Even a win when Adelaide got the better of the Phoenix Suns. But the reality is, if you lose one of these games by less than 30, you're doing a pretty good job. And it was all tied up at quarter time. They only lost one quarter by 10 or more points. So I thought that they competed really well. And man, what Karim Lopez did in that game cannot be overstated for how impressive it was. Because to step out on an NBA floor in preseason or otherwise as a 17-year-old and, look at home like he did, 13 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, 1 block. Yeah, I know the line off by heart because I enjoyed every single moment of it. He made a statement, I think, to NBA talent evaluators that he is a genuine first-round, even lottery, top 10 type of potential talent for the 2026 draft.
There's so much expectation that goes along with these games, especially for the next stars. What's his personality like in terms of how he would handle that expectation? Is he pretty composed in these kind of moments?
I think the cool thing about Karim, talking with him a little bit in the lead-up, was that he was just excited about it. He's a baller, he's a hooper, he's actually played against men in the Olympic qualifying stuff for Mexico, against men here in the early going for the New Zealand Breakers. And then, the fact that he's going out against, NBA players and NBA teams on an NBA floor in an NBA arena. He's like, how good's this? This is what an amazing opportunity that I'm afforded as part of the Next Stars program and the talent, all the hard work that I've put in. So he's got a good mindset about it. He's like, man, I'm going to be matching up against Paul George at different points here against Philly. How cool is that? And then you combine that with a focus and a concentration on taking advantage of the opportunity. There's no pressure on him. Heck, he's only 17. If he lays an egg, well, he's only 17. But if he plays well, like he did against Utah the other day, he can, really make some noise.
I'll just stick in the back of people's memories, that's for sure. So, yeah, second game today against Philly for the Breakers. It'll be interesting to see how they go. Round 4 kicks off Thursday night with another intriguing clash of two teams without a win. So, Southeast Melbourne and Brisbane. A couple of storylines baked into this one. Of course, it's Nathan Sobey returning or playing against his former side in Melbourne. let's talk about the Bullets part before we talk about the Sobey and the Southeast Melbourne part of it. They looked pretty anemic against the Kings in that first half, 27 points. They didn't get it going at all. Where would Justin Shaw's focus be at the moment, do you think?
Oh, I think that their guard play has been poor, to be honest. So they need to get that going, and James Bateman is the is the key to all of that, right? He's their import point guard. He's the guy that they've brought in to be the head of their snake at the offensive end. So, he needs to get going. And it's not just putting points on the board. He needs to just get going in a playmaking sense. Can he create some advantages that set up Tyrell Harrison above the rim, that set up Rocco Zakarsky above the rim, that set up Keandre Cook and, other guys, Bannon on the interior and guys on the perimeter for catch and shoots. So I think that's going to be a primary focus is what can they create on the ball from the point guard spot? And then, that they need to kind of step things up at the defensive end as well. I think Sydney just kind of had their way, really, didn't they? They were doing whatever they want. So, in the words of Scott Roth, can you sit down and guard your yard? Can you take a bit of pride at the defensive end so that we stay out of rotation? So we've got a lot of work to do, man. 0-3. And this Southeast Melbourne team, for as much as, they are similarly winless, they are offensively potent. So Brisbane are going to need to be switched on if they're going to get this road win.
And all eyes are really going to be on Nathan Sobey. He's playing against his former team. There's been maybe a change of role mooted for him. Would you be moving him into a reserve lineup if you were in Mike Kelly's chair, or do you think that he is better to be used with that starting group? How do you think the best way to use him is?
Well, firstly, it's going to be fascinating watching him play against the Bullets because, there was a little bit that went on there in his parting that I don't think he was particularly pleased about with the comments from Justin Shaw and the like. So there is a little extra element to this matchup coming up on Saturday night. I think Mike Kelly needs to make a change of some sort. I think they're at that point. We saw in Perth last year when John really switched up his starting lineup and he brought Hiram Harris in and the pieces all of a sudden started to fit better together and they started to play better as a group. I feel like they're in a similar type of state right now. And look, does that involve what is the obvious move, which is bringing Sobey in as a six-man spark plug off the bench and putting Angus Glover into that spot? Probably. You know what? I think that's a move that probably makes sense. I think it can have the potential to kind of open things up for Derek Walton Jr. You think about that Sydney Kings team that won the championship where Walton Jr. was all NBL first team and he was Larry Sangstock medalist. Remember that grand final series against New Zealand and how Dejan Vasiljevic had a hard time kind of finding his spot alongside Walton Jr. And it was Angus Glover who actually was playing big minutes and having a huge impact. Maybe you can look at that as a bit of a blueprint to say, all right, maybe, Angus does come in and play alongside his former championship winning teammate and we use Sobey to come in and say, hey, listen, when you come in, attack. We want you to be on the front foot and we want you to look and score.
It's going to be, there's a challenge there for Mike Kelly to just see where that goes. And then, Sobey is a key part of what they want to do. So they still have to get the most out of him. You still have to maximize his talent and maximize those around him. That's the sort of the art of coaching for Mike Kelly.
Yeah, for sure. And, I think you got to look at it as not a demotion, but just sometimes in the game at this level, you've just got to move the pieces around a little. I was talking to Dave Anderson yesterday. He was saying, often in Europe, I came off the bench behind, a guy that I ended up playing more minutes than. And it was just that this helped us kind of have a flow at the start. Then I came in and shot some turnaround fadeaway jumpers from the post. And, we generally found some success with that. So if Mike Kelly can be highly communicative with whoever he's going to be moving around and the entire team as a collective, then this, a move like that can bring success.
Dave would have made all those fadeaways too, which there's no doubt about that. Hey, Liam, good doing business with you. Great to have you back on the show. Always appreciate your thoughts and look forward to catching up with you soon.
Cheers, Joel. Great to chat.
Liam Santamaria with us on NBL Now, the NBL app, nbl.com.au throughout the week. And, of course, we'll be back with you tomorrow morning.